Hi, Cal.
Hello.
Okay, we are officially live now. I apologize for the 10-minute delay because for some reason my stuff didn't want to work. Technically savvy, me. So thank you for the patience, guys, and thank you for joining. And we are here for our WWP Indie Book Club Book of the Month from January. We're a little behind, but that's okay. Uh, Live stream follow up, whatever you want to call this, with the one and only Cal Logan, author of ShadowBane, which was our book that was recommended, I think, by ZB. Was it by ZB?
I
Or
think
was it
so.
Dave?
It seems like it would be something he'd recommend.
I don't
Or maybe
remember.
Pete.
It wasn't me. It might have been Pete, but it wasn't me. I asked everybody to pick a book, and everyone nominated one, and someone nominated you, Cal. So I was happy because I
Nice.
actually read the book beforehand and knew how awesome it was. Shut up, Nick. I had a rough night. I don't care if you're sick or not. But anyway, Cal, please give us a little elevator pitch of ShadowBane.
So, ShadowBane is a story about two twins who are mercenary demon hunters in a world that's based off of feudal Japan. And they are the last of a divine bloodline, so they're kind of the last hope of their people. And in the process of tracking down and infiltrating the cult, they get caught up in the political machinations between these three kings who are at war for power over the continent.
That's pretty straightforward. I mean,
Yeah, that's a solid blurb.
Yeah.
You forgot the part of how dark it is, how brutal it is.
I mean, or we could say like Berserk meets The Witcher meets Shogun, if we want to go like one sentence elevator pitch.
That's about right.
Yeah.
I will say, and I'm not going to spoil anything because that would be mean, but I was not expecting this to be that dark. when obviously you could tell by the cover that this is going to be some demon slaying and stuff like that, but I was surprised at how dark you went, and I was very pleased by how dark you went.
I thought I telegraphed like the darkness and intensity of it in the blurb and the cover, but I guess and because you're not the first person to say that like they weren't sure if it was going to be like grimdark or epic fantasy, and they were like, oh, like it's okay, this is super dark, more than they expected. And so that's probably just me as like a debut author not quite knowing exactly how to signal how intense I went with it, if that makes sense.
So that you calling it grimdark, I just want to say I agree with that. There are so many books out there that get labeled as grimdark that really aren't, but yours is. And I appreciated that. I really liked that.
Thank you. I try not to mislabel stuff because it's kind of a pet peeve of mine personally too. Like morally great characters is one that I see a lot of, and usually it's just like a hero who is a little mean sometimes, versus a character who like actually is not wholly good and sometimes does something immoral for whatever reason they think is valid. But anyways, yeah, I appreciate the grimdark seal of endorsement.
Jin is definitely grimdark and morally gray. He is. No, the reason why I say it was surprising because I've been following you for a long time on social, and I remember you writing this like epic fantasy series, like a Sundering or something like that, if I remember correctly. And then all of a sudden, I just remember seeing you pop up with this, and I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe he just changed like a little bit, not in the story sense, but like just changed different locations and all that stuff. And then I went in this, and I was like, oh, that first chapter is brutal, and I enjoyed that. So again, I was quite pleased with the grimdarkness of it, but I knew this wasn't going to be for everybody because when I was telling the WP group that this book was coming up for the month, I was like, yeah, there's probably not going to be some people that are going to want to join this month because of how dark it gets. And then AJ was just like, yes.
Yeah, that's all right. I figured it would be a little self-selecting for the audience, but I'm okay with that. I had a vision in mind, and I know it's not going to be for everyone, but I think that sometimes, like when I'm like reading or watching a movie, I come across something where I'm like, oh my god, that's not for everybody, but I absolutely loved that, and that's kind of the experience that I wanted to give, the target audience.
So with that in mind, where did the genesis of this story start?
I had a really scary nightmare one night. So are you guys familiar with the concept of like sleep paralysis or like an incubus attack?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I get those. Yep. So I get those a couple times a year. And so I had a really, really scary one coming out of a nightmare where there were like demons attacking our home. And so I woke up, and then that happened, and just, really, really intense, really frightening at the time. And we have a dog, like a 13-pound dachshund, who sleeps in the bed with us. So then, like, as I'm kind of like laying back and trying to like calm myself down and go back to sleep, he lays across my chest and just starts like staring through the door. And he's never done that. He sleeps like between us. He never sleeps like on top of us. And I'm like, what the hell is this dog doing? He stays like that for an hour. And so that freaked me out more than anything. And so I was kind of entertaining the idea of like, oh, like, can dogs and animals like see spirits and stuff like that? And I'm not particularly like spiritual or believe in the supernatural, but that was the seed of the idea. So the original concept was like a guy and his dog hunting demons, and then that turned into twins in feudal Japan with their 800-pound Siberian tiger hunting demons.
I mean, dogs are great and all, but let's just have a giant tiger companion that hunts demons, right?
Yeah, I felt that there would be a little bit more, one, just rule of cool, but also appropriate for for the setting.
Mm-hmm.
And there are there's a lot of kind of like animal and like symbolism and animals in Japanese mythology. So I felt like I could have fun with that angle as opposed to it just being like a giant dog.
And so did that lead to wanting to go with the Japanese, setting and everything, or where'd that come from?
Yeah. So once I had the concept of like demon hunting, I wanted to explore a setting that I didn't want to do like Western like Judeo-Christian demons. Just wasn't something I was particularly interested in. And I've always been kind of interested in Japanese mythology, and I knew like a little bit about it. So I did some more research, and the more I researched, the more I became certain like this was the perfect setting. And so, I was also kind of like generally interested in like samurai culture and some like the history of like feudal and Edo Japan. So, I mean, those are different time periods, obviously, but broadly interested in all that. So this is a cool opportunity for me to explore some of that stuff.
Did you at all feel pressure to do it right, being not from that area?
Oh yeah, man, that was had like crazy level imposter syndrome, not only from, let's say, like a writing perspective, but from a like historical and cultural authenticity perspective, particularly with the language. So I did work with a translator who helped me to develop all the terminology. So it's all real Japanese because it's one of those languages where the same syllables can mean different things depending upon the context, essentially. And so everything does translate to like has a real translation as far as the world building that would be like a real place.
So like all the stuff you made up for your specific book could theoretically translate perfectly into
That's really cool.
Yeah, like Shikoken means supreme sword, and
Very
so that's
cool.
why. And so when they're calling them like the honorific like Jinken and Shuriken, they're literally referring to them as like you are a sword, like you are a blade.
That's awesome.
And that's why a lot of like Jin's self-analysis, like he describes himself as having been like melted and like wetted and reforged and beaten, and it's a like almost like a literal like him like his mindset of being a weapon.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Very
that
cool.
metaphor shows often with Jin as just thinking more of not as a human, but more of just a tool or a weapon.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
So did
Right.
you
One of
also
the-
take a lot of your like I know some of the demon names were familiar to me from other things, and I know those are from Japanese folklore. Were all of them, or did you have any that were your own creation?
I think I have like 2, maybe 3 that were a slight reinterpretation. One of them, and they might not have even appeared yet in the first book. So the vast majority of them are pulled directly from Japanese mythology. And in some cases, there is a slight reimagining, like the Chunari, the serpentine demons, having like a stinger. That's not canonical in the lore, but I just wanted to give them an extra weapon, just to make them a little more dangerous. And then like Sutoku Tenno, for example, is a real kami, like a real historical figure. He's usually known as like an onryo, like if you've seen the Grudge, like that type of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to make him like a very powerful tengu instead.
Yeah, I thought the demons were very well rounded or balanced, so to speak, because you just didn't have the one kind, which you tend to see in a lot of books. You have like the one villain, like Wheel of Time. They have the Trolloc, and that's just they might look a little bit different, but they're still one giant Trolloc. I thought that was cool that you introduced the number of different demons in these kind of, and we didn't mention this, but the book is almost a little episodic in nature, where they're like go on one monster hunt a week type thing, go back and have their rest, and then go on another one, and then in those other ones you have different oni that show up, and I thought that was a really smart idea to balance with the cultists that are in there that are also bad.
Thanks. I wanted to, let's say, like do justice to the just incredible like richness of of Japanese mythology and lore. And then Chris actually had a comment here talking about how he read mine, and then Baptiste Pinson Wu's you just read Voice of the Kami. No, so the sequel, nice. I haven't read that one yet, but I did read Blood of the Kami, and it's funny. His feels like very like whimsical, which is actually kind of a staple in like Eastern storytelling. Whereas I went like full like American grimdark with that. But he also has like a crazy variety of yokai, and his are very traditionally portrayed. Like some are just like mischievous spirits, and there are some ones that are like really goofy. Like I forget I think it's called like a Wanyudo, but it's like a big wheel that's on fire with a big nose, and they're a malicious spirit. Like they're dangerous, but I felt like that didn't fit the aesthetic of ShadowBane. So that's like one of like 200 that I left out. Like I was still cherry picking some ones that I felt like fit the aesthetic and the intent. But Baptiste Pinson Wu has some another really, like Chris was saying, a really cool angle on presenting some of the cultural folklore. He does present it in a more traditional vein than I do.
Well, I think, to be fair, he is more of a historical fantasy writer, whereas you probably label yourself more of a fantasy writer with historical influence, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a different subgenre. And like I said, the kind of wanting to go extremely dark with it meant I was limiting myself to a certain subset of Japanese folklore. So just like a different artistic intent. But I still think it's fun to kind of compare like across to see the different interpretations of the same base mythology.
Yeah, I still have to read his. I've read his Undead Samurai was a blast. That one was really fun. Definitely more zombie than fantasy, but it's still historical based because they have his Musashi, famous swords guy. I can't think of his name.
Musashi Minamoto.
Yes, yes. He's in
Or
it, which was cool. But back to ShadowBane, you have an interesting structure. You have two POVs, these two twins, Shura and Jin, and I know AJ has a question on them in a second, but you alternate POVs. How did you choose that, and how hard was it to stick to that without screwing up anything in the plots?
So I chose it because fundamentally, when you strip away like all the action scenes, this is a story about two siblings who care for each other very much and come from really difficult circumstances, who make different choices that they both think are for the best and are slowly driven apart from each other. So, and that's why this series is called The Schism of Souls, right? This is about the story of Jin and Shura being like tearing themselves apart, like from each other. And so because of that, I wanted to show it from both their perspectives in relatively equal measure so that people can, you're not sure who to root for. It's kind of like, like choose your team, choose your side. And I wanted to just give that experience. And for both characters to kind of misunderstand each other a little bit. And that like Shura does not see, because Jin doesn't share with her his like softer side where he does have hopes and dreams and vulnerabilities. And likewise, he doesn't, he kind of sees her as just kind of being ambitious and like reckless and a little power hungry and he doesn't understand like how like lonely and unfulfilled she feels and how much she's like really yearning for just like some respect and for people to like take her seriously. So I wanted to show kind of the misunderstandings of like what the outside perception is from the other person versus what then their twin thinks, and getting some of that interiority. And as far as the other question, it was super hard to stick to, and about halfway through drafting it, I wanted to bash myself over the head with the computer for taking that on.
Yeah, there was a couple spots that I could tell where you were like, "Oh, damn it! I know I have to go to the other POV," and because there was like you could feel where a scene was about to hit a crescendo in tension, and then you're like, "Ah, shit! I need to go see this."
I can't go too far, without the other person. So sometimes sometimes it afforded me a lot of versatility, and other times it painted me into a corner where I had to be very careful with how I approached it. So it's kind of a strength of sticking, or the strengths and drawbacks of sticking to a certain format.
Would you ever do that style again if I passed this series?
If I thought it was necessary, yeah. For me, that like it was so important just to thematically for the story to be told this way that I had to do it. Which was harder to write for me personally, Shura, just because I have not experienced a lot of the.
He stole my question.
All right, I'm gonna answer for both of you, but yeah, Shura was a little harder for me to write because I have not experienced, like just kind of like the sexism and discrimination that she experiences. I haven't been like how I drew on that was I know what it's like to be underestimated, and so I just had to draw on that, but from a very different angle, and basically like play that up. Whereas Jin, maybe not so much like the craziest, most like almost like psychopathic moments Jin has, but in general, like he's kind of like a surly like brooding guy, and that's like I can just tap into my assholery a little bit, and he's a little easier, like more natural for me to write.
Well, you also didn't have to deal with the feudal Japanese traditional female stereotype.
Yeah,
housewife,
and how like binding and limiting it really was. Mm-hmm. And that's something also where like I wanted to do justice to some of that social structure, but I still had to play a little bit loose with it to allow this type of story to unfold. Because if it was like 100% accurate to history, it'd be like, no, like Shura, you're kidnapped and Jin, you're executed. Story's over. So.
Well, that would be a very long book.
Yeah.
Fiction allows for us to do that, though. I mean, use history as a base, and then it's your story, so you get to play with these things and draw them out. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like if you pay a lot of attention or like authenticity to one or two aspects of like the culture, the history, then you can get away with some wiggle room with other areas. So it's, you know, the line I tried to walk.
So was it important for both of them to have a romance angle for you to
Yep.
humanize them?
Yeah, and just to, again, as a contrast of how that plays out, you know, like one, you know, pursues a king, and the other one is basically, you know, like
Lady
trying
of
to
the
wipe
night.
up a prostitute. Yeah, so, you know, another way of drawing a line between them, of dichotomizing like how they approach, you know, love and family and relationships.
I mean, it even shows that I I apologize, I can't remember her name now, but the way she treated the prostitute or the sex worker was almost a class thing, where they felt like she was in another class than the sex worker, and I found that
Yeah.
actually pretty interesting. I mean, obviously you're attempting to create the tension between the brother and the sister, but I was like, oh, he's doing that as well. He's not just doing, you know, male and female relationships, but he's showing just the different classes where you can tell there's different levels of the world that you built between everybody. So
I'm glad you picked up on that, because yeah, sure it does very much like look down on prostitutes and like and commoners basically. You know, I think there's also a time when she refers to a group of people as like lowly fucking peasants, because even though she has, you know, no real official status in her head, she is still like the leader of this divine dynasty that she believes, you know, should be at the head of a kingdom.
I have lots of weird historical questions, but I don't recall you mentioning samurai or anything specific, at least as far as that I've gotten. I'm still trudging through. I think I'm like 75%. But did you feel that these two were almost of a warrior class that was near the past or nearly gone, and almost representing that as the warrior class of Japan molded and changed and disappeared, because you're introducing gunpowder and things of that nature into the book? Or am I just drawing lines that aren't there?
So you're seeing something that was perhaps not 100% intentional, and this is like talking about almost writing myself into a corner, or somewhere I had to maneuver. So I did not want to use the term samurai, because for two reasons. A lot of people would misconstrue that. They would just think warriors, when it was in fact an entire social caste.
Yeah.
So I referred to them as like nobility, or like the noble clans or the warrior clans. And you will see a lot more of that in book 2, because they're on the road for so much of book 1 that, and I kind of tried to, you see some of the politicking between kingdoms, but now we're going to see what the internal kingdom politicking is. And,
oh yeah, I love that. Bill knows that.
So you'll see, so there very much are still like traditional like samurai clans, but I just refer to them as noble clans. And then actual warriors are called bushi, which was the term for samurai before samurai evolved to become an entire social class.
I mean, it also gives you play, right? Because it's not just Japanese based. You're using broadswords and other things that aren't traditionally from that area in the book.
Yeah.
So I mean, like we said earlier, it's fiction, fantasy. You get to play with a lot of things. So.
And in that specific case, Jin takes that weapon from like someone from like the West, like Wallace, like that's specifically a Western weapon. And so, but you'll get a lot more insight into kind of like how that social caste is built, and the introduction of gunpowder has kind of changed the dynamics, because now there's also kind of like a royal army, a standing army, which, you know, in real history, right, eventually went to war against the samurai clans, as you know, to create like Imperial Japan. In this case, you almost see how they're still delineated, and in some cases they fight alongside them. In some cases, but they're basically a means for Oda to try to curb the power of the noble clans, and it's part of the cause of tension between them.
So speaking of Wallace, for those that have not read the book, Wallace is not from this area. He's basically almost like European, you know, knight's squire, or failed squire, I guess you will. and he joins this little demon slaying crew, and he's kind of like this wide-eyed, doesn't know shit about shit, pull up your pants type character that Jin takes
Keeps
under his
making
wing.
mistakes, man.
What's that, Matt?
He just keeps making mistakes, and I'm like, Jin, I'm like, dude, like, stop trying to get everybody killed.
Poor Wallace. He just wanted to be loved. But what made you decide to add this type of character to this dynamic of these two twins that are very, very dark, dreary souls searching for hope? And you kind of give them this little hope in form of this little teddy bear that needs some help.
So that's why I wanted to do it. I wanted to give them someone to play off of who was not born in their circumstances, who has very different worldview, who is a little naive and has not experienced what they've experienced, and who comes from not only, he's a little younger than them, but also comes from a dramatically different culture. And that also was a way for me to make it a little easier to explain certain facets of the culture, so that readers who might not intuitively grasp these things, I could kind of help them out a little bit for, using tension between Jin and Wallace for when he can lecture him on stuff like that. And I think and then also just humor wise, like the book needed a little bit of light in there just to balance it out.
Yeah, I think it was funny because I was messaging you while I was reading it, and I took Matt's points of poor Wallace making these mistakes. I had theories based on these mistakes, and I was completely wrong, which was great. He just made mistakes. Poor Wallace made mistakes. But no, it is the light to the dark, and it is the humor. But also, I found him perfect for being the info dumpy. Like, you had to get all this information out, and you need somebody to learn it with the readers. And it's just like, okay, here you go. Here you go, Wallace. Have fun. Try not to mess up again.
I mean, in his defense, he's 16 and basically washed up on a boat here, and then he's tailing like two of the best warriors in the kingdoms while they're fighting some of the most dangerous like creatures in existence. He does. I think he does all right by my reckoning.
For the most part.
Yeah, his mistakes are usually mistakes of judgment, not of capability.
Right.
Like he's actually a pretty effective combatant, but then he just his little bleeding heart gets the best of him, and he stumbles headfirst into danger.
Poor Wallace. He had some issues. Him and Jin. Okay, with that older brother mindset, do you have an older brother? Are you an older brother? Does this?
I have an older brother, so I'm the baby of the family.
Real life?
What's that?
Is this like real life instances coming in, like the frustration of the older brother with the younger brother?
Not so much, honestly. Like he and I got along really well, because he's 8 years older than me, so
okay.
We weren't like close enough that we were competing, and so like aside from a couple like quibbles here and there, we actually got along like really really well, and still do. So it was nothing like the kind of like why do you keep fucking up anger that Jin feels towards Wallace sometimes. Nothing like that.
Well, nothing life or death either. I would hope in Midwest Illinois.
Yeah.
That's
and then
cool.
and for Wallace, I'm sure as well. Like she takes kind of like a sisterly dynamic, but is kind of like sneaky or underhanded with him sometimes. And same thing. Like I just kind of had to like conjure that out of nowhere because lucky to have a pretty great family, and there was not a lot of that going on.
I mean, coming from my family background, the arguments and the tension between the two siblings, I know a lot of people that have brothers and sisters and they get along with them really well, and it's not talking bad about my brother and sister, but like the tension is done really well. This is a true two siblings fighting and arguing and still loving each other, but like definitely different people, and we're still blood, and we have this mission to do or this idea, but like getting under each other's nerves as only family can do was what I took from it, the relationship. So
I felt that way too. I have a brother, so like
right.
it felt pretty realistic at times with that.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I think at first when I wrote them, they were actually too much on the same page, and I was like, "There's not enough conflict in this book." I was like, and that's kind of what it's supposed to be about. So I that was like the basis for my rewrites when I was still drafting this, was to really give them reasons to to really see things differently. And like behind every like big choice that they made that set them apart was like, okay, like why did you do this? Like why do you see it that way? Like why do you resent the other person for seeing it differently? And that's kind of the angle I had to lean into it.
So, kind of going back to the genesis of this, from the idea, how long did this take you to get it published?
About 2.5 years. There was a pretty hefty break in the middle because I think probably didn't hear it because this when you were going through technical difficulties, but I originally wrote this as a standalone, and I had an agent at the time, and he left the industry like a month after I sent him his manuscript. I was like, oh, like it was that bad, huh? Like, geez. So I didn't know whether I wanted to require another agent. At this point, this was like a 200,000 word standalone that was super dark niche audience, and I just I knew it was going to be tough to sell to an agent or pitch to an agent. So that was when I came to the crossroads of like, do I want to pursue trad with this, or do I want to strike on my own? And if so, it's not going to be a standalone because it's a massive book, and I can split it up and not make it cost $20 to print. So I took like 6 months to play Elden Ring and make some life decisions, but really think about what I wanted to do for my career as a writer, and came down on I'm going to bet on myself and go indie, and I'm really glad I did. So taking out that like waiting period would be about like 2 years of actually working on it.
Well, that's very interesting with the agent. So if it was a single book, what changed in between that single 200,000 word? Because this is still a hefty book. This is 500 pages, so that's got to be what, 150,000 words?
It's about 160, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was when it was a standalone, like parts of the middle and ending were really, really rushed. What I'm going to release as book 2 was basically like 4 paragraphs. So I basically generated book 2 from scratch, and like the entire kind of like cave arc in ShadowBane, that's not in the first draft. That actually wasn't even in the draft of ShadowBane that I sent to beta readers. And they were like, "There's some pacing issues here, dude." Like, so, and it was good feedback.
Well, I'm glad you added that cave part because that was pretty. I mean, it was brutal, but it was good.
It was very important for sure as POV.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I agree, and I think that's where things really started to come together. And it's actually the first time that you see the twins not by each other's side, and like things go pretty poorly, and it's kind of a glimpse into the future of like, okay, what if these two are not here to balance each other out?
So it morphed from 1 book to 2 books to now 3 books.
Yeah. So that the book 3 is basically going to be like the back half of what the standalone was, and then there's some stuff in the kind of like early to middle portion that I'm going to flesh out. And yeah, book 2 is the one that required the most fleshing out because basically, I don't want to like get too spoiler with the ending here, but where book 1 ends, it's pretty clear that they're like, okay, like here's this big next step, and in the original like draft, everyone basically aligns with that and is like, yeah, high five, like let's go get them. And that doesn't happen. Now there's a lot of, okay, like how do we rally an entire kingdom when not everybody's actually on the same page because of all this political tension that we've built throughout and alluded to, within their kingdom. So that's what book 2 is.
Okay, cool.
Did
And I
you
think we
play?
talked.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, it's all right.
I think we talked about this on socials at one point, but you said book 2 is coming out later this year.
Yeah, I anticipate May or June, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm very close to wrapping up my self edits, post beta self edits, and once I do that, I will I'll send it to my editor, and I'll pick and announce a launch date.
You got a cover already?
No, I don't know how people get their covers so early. I'm missing something here because I need to give my book length to my cover designer so he knows how big to make the file. So I can't start working on the cover until the book is like fully done. I have ideas for the cover, but I'll probably just let my artist do his thing.
Yeah, I've never like done the process of still writing while I approach a cover artist either. So like I don't know how people do that when they're still working on stuff.
Your process is a little funkier than most.
I know. I take forever compared to everybody else.
I query my cover after I've got probably at least the second draft done, but the writing's never done. So I mean, long as I have a general idea of beginning, middle, end.
Who's your artist?
Do you then just readjust the size and everything to do you readjust the okay.
Yeah, my cover artist is very flexible with me.
Okay.
I got him really early before he got big. So he knows I promote him and as much as I can, even when I'm not giving him money. So he's pretty flexible with things like that. So
yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. You couldn't have him like do the art now and then give him the final file once it's done?
I probably could, but at the same time, if we can get it done like one step, and that's okay. And then he does offer me like a revision, and I use that to put the cover quotes onto it, like right before it goes live. So I just
nice.
And Chris, to answer your question there, yeah, I'll release another naked hardcover on Amazon, and I will be using the same artist.
I was going to ask again. I'm kind of reaching here, but you've got Three Kings, and you've got Wallace to make a trilogy there. Are the Three Kings loosely based off of the different attitudes between those three characters and the Three Kings, or is that just something I'm seeing as well? I noticed one's like, Noah or Oda, excuse me. And then I don't know, did that come into play at all or no?
I wasn't trying to use the Kings to parallel any of the other main characters. I wanted them to have their different personalities.
Yeah.
So you have the Oda as kind of like the wise, calculating, like very stern, very commanding, but like pretty fair, all things considered. Megataro being like the paranoid asshole, and Togashi being like very soft spoken, but still like pretty ruthless and almost like plays in the back seat or so you think, but he's actually still quite capable. So, and you'll still get more of the history behind like Togashi and the twins and what they were like, growing up, because they grew up with him basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's stuff I plan to still roll out slowly.
This is I'm sorry, everybody, I'm getting nerdy here, but is Oda a play on Oda Nobunaga from the Warring States period?
It was
okay.
like a nod. It was a nod to him, but it was
that's
not.
What I meant. Yeah, not a direct copy or anything like that. But
right.
What about, is Takasha the second king at all, or is that just me just knowing that name?
Togashi, no, that was just me picking a name.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
So is book 2 then going to be more politically based as opposed to the monster of the week vibe?
Very much, yeah. And I mean, there's still going to be some pretty crazy action, of course. There's a way to work demons, or I had to find a way to work demons into this, because when it was originally part of the standalone, it was just at first like very brief and then purely political and then now I found a way to like thread demons in because I didn't want to lose that. But they're not going to be like running around abroad, village to village. The story basically takes place in Kinza and deals with them like navigating the various like political tensions.
Very cool. How am I going to ask this question without touching on anything at the ending?
It's very careful phrasing.
I know. Let's just say, for those that haven't got to the end yet or haven't read the book yet, the ending is a very much swear fest towards Cal. I told him I almost threw my phone. I would have thrown my book if I had a physical book.
I told you the same thing, Bill. I got to that one part. The only reason I didn't, I was reading on my Kindle, and I didn't want to break my Kindle.
I was on my phone, and I didn't want to throw my phone, but that's the only reason why I did. Okay, knowing that ending happens, and Chris says a good lead into this. How are you going to make that story go in during that path? How are you going to get there with rectifying what happens at the end?
So I will not be adding more POVs like this. This is Jin and Shura's story, and it's actually one of the challenges at this point is because there are times when it would have been easier for me to add a POV or two, especially when it gets very like politicky. So that's kind of another weird downside of only having 2 POVs. But anyways, no, I'm finishing what I started. And as far as how we're gonna get there, because I don't want to spoil anything.
No.
The ending sentiment is a little bit, let's say, like, oh, like, fuck these guys, we're going scorched earth. And so we're gonna see how you rally an entire kingdom to basically uptake your, at this point, personal vendetta. And meanwhile, there's also some personal demons that need dealing with.
I was gonna say how
demons? Demons?
Pun not intended, but also unfortunately unavoidable.
Sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there's gonna be a lot of tension at the beginning of that second book between these two characters for how the book ends. But I guess that's a good way to segue into the prophecy of the book that Shura sees, the schism of souls, as you call it, and one shall fall. Is this where like the basis is gonna start to play up and become the focus of the rest of the series?
So that idea is going to be explored more. I want to, I'm sorry, I want to leave you guys in suspense as much as possible as far as to which twin rises and which one falls. I don't think the ending, you will get a definitive answer, clear as day, by the end of the trilogy, right? But until then, I want it to feel like it's anyone's game. There are moments, even in ShadowBane, for both twins that are very dark, and there are moments of redemption where you're like, okay, they could legitimately be like the hero who saves the day, and I want to try and keep that general vibe going as I push them through different parts of their journeys. So you'll see elements of smaller rises and falls for both of them as the larger mythology behind this. Yeah, as the larger mythology behind this gets explored. So you'll learn a little bit more about like Jin Sui, like kind of who kind of like created or like was part of the reason how the demons got created, and you'll see get some glimpses more into like Sarugami and the other kami, who they appear in like these little like vignettes and stuff like that. And so I still want to explore that too, which will hopefully give more context as to like what happened with the gods, like why have they gone silent, and what does that mean for the twins.
AJ, you want to ask your one question that you want?
Oh, I guess I did have one more on my list, didn't I? So there's this whole reincarnation aspect in your world building that ties into the demons. Is that something you pulled from folklore too, or was that like your own creation? I really liked that aspect of the book.
So you see that a little bit in some like Japanese Buddhism, like that, like you have to endure a certain amount of lifetimes at like each of the various hells before you can essentially like come to like purgatory, like lessen your punishments more or less. So there is like some folklore basis for that, but I also I wanted the reincarnation aspect in the story. It's gonna be integral to the plot. So. And I felt like it added to the weight of what they're up against. Where it's like, where you can't. It's not you can't win a war of attrition against them. Like you have to at some point you can't outlast them. Like you have to actually venture out and strike, and that's what kind of creates this pressure for them to get to the Blackwood.
So these two siblings have magic, but it's kind of low magic. Was that something you wanted to do, that, or you felt necessary to throw it in there to make them the special bloodline, or did you just want to do something low magic anyway?
The special bloodline is very important to the story. I don't think it would work with no magic, but I also didn't want them to be super overpowered. So that's why I approached it the way it did, and it's I almost I almost based, I think my experience is like a Warcraft and like Dota players coming in, because it's like, all right, you have like two abilities and there's a cooldown of like this period and that period more or less. Like she can use her light burst once and maybe a second time like a minute later, but it's really weak. So I didn't want it to be just crazy magic that I could just like pull out of my hat whenever they got in trouble. I wanted very specific abilities, and I don't Sanderson it. I'm not like, oh, this is your light burst ability, like you can do this, like, oh, you can put flames on your sword for for this amount of time, and it's I just want to show them using it and show what it does. And I think it's still simple and straightforward enough for readers to infer that like this is the only thing they can do and this is how it works. As far as increasing the magic beyond that, it's not like they're gonna randomly get new abilities. I think the other way I explore the magic is actually through the demons and showing some of what they can do. Like Sutoko Tenno can throw lightning, and the Greater Oni can render themselves invisible. That has that massive incantation to open a portal to the hells. So there's like that too, and that is also canonically kind of like ability based. It's just a little. I'm okay with giving the bad guys more powers. Let's put it that way.
Well, they need to, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to overcome. The good guys to overcome them and all that stuff. Yeah. No, I actually really liked the fact that it was subtle, use only in dire, like break only in case of emergency type magic, not just like Mary Sue and Gary Sue left and right defeating stuff. I thought that was very clever, especially when they started getting overrun by the demons in certain scenes.
Thank you. And then I guess this is not too spoilery, but like a little nugget of lore that I throw out in book 2 is that at one point, like Short gets a text, like a book that's kind of like chronicling the history of the Shikoken and like the onset of their abilities. And she realizes that like earlier Shikoken had both their abilities rolled into one. So like they could do all 4 of those: the demon sense, the light burst, and the flaming sword, and like Hulk strength. So so her and Jin being twins, it's like they literally like split the abilities. So they're actually.
I like that you did that. I like that.
So they're weaker than they should be.
That's cool. One last question from me. This is going to be vulgar to some people, but what made you decide to reclaim a good big old C word and use it quite often in this book? You don't usually see this in the Western books.
Is it often?
No, you don't see it often, but you said it quite often in the book.
Did I?
Jim says it.
I think I had like a good like 4 or 5 in there. Is that a lot? My general rule of thumb is nothing's off limits if it serves the story, and he is a crass, vulgar, irreverent character, and especially with Japanese society being just so geared towards like politeness, it felt like a way to differentiate him even more. He is like, he's the only character who curses constantly. Shura curses occasionally when she's really furious. Wallace gets one curse in the whole book, and it's shit. And it's when he almost like loses his leg. And no other character curses. And so that was very deliberate.
Very cool. Chris has a question. Have you traveled or lived in Japan at any time in your life?
I have not. Still on my bucket list.
Well, good to know. Matt, AJ, any final questions?
I think I had all of mine answered.
I got a couple, but hopefully they'll be short. You're working on the sequel and then the third book, and probably in tandem or whatever. After this series, do you have further plans? Are you like the rest of us authors, where you've got a couple back burner projects or things that you want to explore, or is it I'm gonna go, somewhere sunny and kick my feet up and try not to think for a little bit after being so dark?
I'm gonna definitely do that for like a little while, but I probably have like ideas for 6 or 7 other projects I want to explore after this. I think like 2 that I have it down to a top 2 of my front runners. One would kind of be like Faithful and the Fallen vibes. The other one would kind of be like steampunk with like high magic. So like kind of like Greenbone or like Arcane. So whatever I do, I want to do something very different, like tonally. Even the one that's kind of a little more John Gwynne-y it'd still be like a little dark, but there'd be like actual like good heroes in there who just want to do the right thing. Okay. And they wouldn't have like that just like heavy atmosphere of the really dark mythology. But I'll take notes on those. I'm not doing any sort of drafting whatsoever. Like I am committed to writing out this series, and I'm actually about maybe 30-40% of the way through drafting a prequel novella where you'll see Jin and Shura as we young children, and I think that'll and it kind of chronicles like their early days on the road, like when they first leave Gakeshi, and so you'll get
letter tone or still full of blood and swearing.
No,
first
still same
swearing,
tone.
First swears.
Yeah, there's oh yeah, definitely that. Even at like 14, Jin's an absolute savage. Shura is a lot more like naive at this point, and you kind of get some insight into like her past with Togashi, who's also like a young prince at that point, and you kind of see like why she ends up like so like embittered with him, and you see like Jin's training basically and how he was treated, and it's pretty brutal, of course. But that's going to be the working title there is Open Wounds, and so that'll be like a Schism of Souls novella, and the plan is actually to release that in early 2027 before I really gun for book 3.
Okay.
So do you think book 3 will be 2027 or 2028?
Probably 28.
So to piggyback on Matt's question, I'm just curious, has it been hard to be in such a grim world for so long without branching out into something of a different tone?
Sometimes, yeah. I definitely have like my moments where I miss kind of like immerse myself in something lighter. So like reading that tends to help. That can scratch the itch, or just drafting or noting down ideas for like a lighter project can also help do that. But like it's sometimes tough to stay in a dark mindset for so long. But at the same time, like I wouldn't have thought of this stuff and just like leaned full tilt into this project if that's not kind of where a lot of my storytelling inclinations went in the first place. So,
Makes sense.
you know, although it's like a bit much at times, for the most part, like a lot of stuff I think of is just pretty dark, and and then, you know, sometimes I have to give it a little extra juice, you know, so it fits what I've already laid out for this series. But you know, for the most part, like I don't really feel like I'm forcing anything. Maybe just channeling like kind of the darker inclinations of my storytelling towards this, and then the lighter stuff that I would like want to write but doesn't fit this project, I'm like, okay, you can go towards like the other file and marinate there.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I the only reason why I ask is because I released my second book, and I was just like, I need to do something different. I need to clear my head a little bit and do something.
Industrial Colossus was a nice break from there.
Lighter and shorter and less dense. But no,
what's your release date on that, by the way?
Very admirable that you're seeing it through the dark, all the way through the darkness.
Yeah, at this point, I'm pot committed, you know.
I mean, book 2's almost done, so you're well on your way to the end. But no, this was great, Cal. Appreciate it. Fun, dark book with a lot of demon slaying. I'm glad that other people got to read this, and I got to talk to other people about it, because when I read it, only Pete was the only one that I was able to talk to about it. So it's been nice talking to others. And like, even when Christopher, you know, Navo in the chat was reading it, I was like, oh, where you at? Like, did you finish yet? You know, it was just, this book is just awesome. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, I'm glad more people are getting to see it, because it's a very good book. I will say, I hope you don't move on. It's Biffbo, because we're against each other. I'm joking. I do hope you move on. I wish we were in different groups. It's unfortunate.
What's that?
I said I wish we were in different groups of Spiffbo, because I would want more people to read this, but not at the. I'm joking. If you move on, I'm cheering you
I get it.
to the end.
I get it, man.
Cheering you to the end. But thank you for joining us. I'm glad you were able to make it, and it was awesome hearing more about this stuff. And you know, I love this. AJ brought this great idea to the team. I'm glad we're doing this indie book club, because we get to see a lot more underrated indie books, and you're definitely one of them, my friend.
Yeah, so. I appreciate that. Thank you all for reading it, and for whoever nominated it for the January read. Super appreciate it. To basically just mirror your words, Bill. It's really cool and like very humbling to see my work start to get into other people's hands and to see them enjoying it. So thanks again, and I'm glad you did enjoy it.
Yeah, and everybody, the information is in the description below. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. But go follow Cal, get the book. You won't be disappointed if you like grimdark and very cool stories with dark flavor. You won't be disappointed.
There's a cat in it. He's a cute, cuddly cat who wears armor. That's not grimdark.
Cute and cuddly. That's 800 pounds of pure demon slaying muscle.
That's about as cute and cuddly as I'm willing to get. Thank you all in the chat for joining us and for asking some great questions.
All right. Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. And we will be back next month with the book is what's it called, AJ?
Vengeance is Our Legacy.
Vengeance is Our Legacy by
cool
MC
title.
Burrell.
I don't remember.
I'm so bad at this.
I only wrote down the title. I just finished reading it, but yeah. Good.
Well, we'll be back next month, and again, we thank you. So, Cal, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next month. And now we'll end on the awkward way.